I always thought the biggest mistakes at a dealership happened on the sales floor. A misquoted price, a forgotten warranty detail, a misread financing application. But that morning, I learned mistakes could be quieter, crueler, and a lot more dangerous. It was a Tuesday. The kind of day where the phones rang off the hook, customers wandered in with coffee cups half drained, and my staff buzzed around pretending they weren't on edge. End of the month always made people weird. Quotas were breathing down everyone's necks. I had just finished my second cup of black coffee when I noticed him. A man in his late 40s, wearing a frayed jacket and dusty boots, standing awkwardly by the SUV section. Beside him was a little boy, no older than 10, clutching his hand tightly. They looked out of place, not because of what they wore, but because of how they stood. Nervous, like they were waiting for someone to tell them they didn't belong. I was about to walk over myself when I saw one of my salesmen. Derek. Noticed them first. I paused, thinking maybe I'd see a little kindness today. Maybe Derek would prove me wrong about him, but the second I saw Derek's fake smile stretch across his face, I felt my gut knot. "Can I help you folks?" Derek asked, voice dripping with that high-pitched syrup he reserved for people he thought wouldn't buy. The man nodded slowly. "We were looking at the pre-owned Escalade?" His voice cracked slightly, embarrassed. Derek's smile didn't falter, but his eyes screamed condescension, like he was speaking to a joke. I took a step forward. Maybe I could intervene gracefully. But then I heard it. Soft enough that maybe Derek thought no one would catch it, but loud enough for that little boy to hear. "Yeah, well, just so you know, these are for serious buyers," Derek muttered under his breath, glancing meaningfully at the man's dusty boots. The man's face paled. The little boy's hand gripped tighter, and for a brief second, the whole dealership seemed to go still. Even the fluorescent lights above us hummed a little quieter. I opened my mouth to step in, but the man shook his head once, sharp, almost invisible, and turned away. He didn't say anything, he didn't yell, he didn't demand a manager. He just squeezed his son's hand and walked straight out the glass doors. I stood there, stunned. Something about the look in that man's eyes, it wasn't defeat. It wasn't shame. It was something worse. Something broken. "Derek!" I barked, startling him so hard he nearly dropped his clipboard. He wheeled around, all innocent smiles and raised eyebrows. "Yeah, boss." "What the hell was that?" I snapped, lowering my voice so customers wouldn't hear. "What?" Derek shrugged. "They clearly couldn't afford anything. I was saving us time. You're always on us about efficiency, right?" I stared at him, heart thudding. This wasn't efficiency. This was cruelty. And what haunted me most wasn't the insult itself. It was the way the little boy had looked back, just once, before the doors closed behind them. A look I couldn't shake, not anger, not sadness, disappointment, as if he'd expected better from us. The day moved on, or tried to. I couldn't shake the tightness in my chest. Sales came in, test drives happened, deals got signed. But it all felt wrong. Like there was a crack running right under our showroom floor, and nobody but me could feel it splintering wider. Around 4 p.m. I sat at my desk, staring blankly at a sales report, when Karen, my receptionist, poked her head into my office. Boss? There's a woman asking to see you. Says it's urgent." I frowned. "Who is she?" Karen hesitated. "She wouldn't say, but she's got authority, if you know what I mean." I didn't, but curiosity outweighed suspicion. "Send her in," I said. A moment later, the woman walked in. She was tall, with sharp features, and a presence that made the air in the room thin. Expensive-looking blazer, hair pulled into a sleek bun, eyes like steel. And tucked just behind her, peeking out shyly, was the little boy. The same boy from this morning. I stood so fast my chair nearly tipped. "Good afternoon," she said crisply. "I'm Claudia Winters, attorney. I believe my son and his grandfather had an experience here this morning." My blood went cold. Attorney? Grandfather? Das. My mind raced. Had Derek insulted someone important? Das. Were we being sued? Gramenerast. What the hell was happening? Gramenerast. Please, sit, I managed to say, gesturing to the chairs. Claudia remained standing. I won't take much of your time, she said. I just thought you should know. That man your salesman humiliated? He's not some drifter. She took a step forward. He's the founder of Winter's Heavy Industries, a company that, until this morning, was prepared to move their entire fleet purchase contract here. My mouth dried instantly. Winter's Heavy Industries? That was the big account we had been chasing for months. Fleets of trucks, service vehicles, company SUVs, all needing regular turnover. $1 million relationship, minimum. Gone. In a whisper, because of a few cruel words. I opened my mouth, some instinct to apologize, to grovel. But Claudia held up a hand. I'm not here for an apology, she said. I'm here for him. She nodded to her son. I looked down. The boy stared up at me, not angry, just waiting to see if I was any better than Derek. Your salesman taught my son a lesson today, Claudia said, her voice tight. And now, I want him to see what happens when people are held accountable. I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the moment settle on my shoulders. Claudia, I said carefully, I take full responsibility for what happened. And Derek? He will be dealt with immediately. Her eyes narrowed slightly, like she was weighing my sincerity against a lifetime of broken promises. I didn't blame her. I wouldn't trust me either if I stood where she was standing. But then she said something I didn't expect. I want your word, she said, her voice quieter now, but somehow even sharper. Not just that you'll deal with him. I want your word that you'll change whatever kind of culture let a man like that thrive here. The little boy's fingers tightened around the side of her jacket. Waiting. Listening. Not just for me to say the right thing, but to mean it. I nodded slowly. I give you my word, I said, and for the first time that day I meant it in my bones. Claudia gave a brief, almost imperceptible nod. Then she turned to her son. You see, Adam? She said gently. People make mistakes, big ones, but real strength is admitting them and doing better afterward. Adam looked up at her, then back at me, his face unreadable. Then, before I could say anything else, Claudia reached into her bag and pulled out a small white envelope. She placed it on my desk without a word. That's my personal card, she said. If you ever get serious about running a business based on respect, call me. And then they left. Simple as that. No screaming, no threats. Just a quiet, devastating reckoning. I sat there for a long time after the door swung shut behind them, staring at the white envelope like it might catch fire. 100 thoughts raced through my mind. How many times had things like this happened without me noticing? A law. How many deals had we lost because someone like Derek decided who, quote, deserved dignity and who didn't? Whoa. I thought I was running a dealership. But maybe I was just running a machine. One fueled by arrogance and hidden rot. And it was spreading. I stood up so fast my chair clattered backward I didn't even bother picking it up. I stormed onto the sales floor, scanning for Derek. I spotted him leaning casually against the service counter, chatting up one of the receptionists like nothing had happened. My hands curled into fists at my sides. Derek. My office. Now. The whole floor went silent. Phones kept ringing, printers kept humming, but all the people froze. Derek blinked like a deer caught in headlights. I didn't wait to see if he followed. I knew he would. Predators always slither fastest when they know the knife's coming. Inside my office, I didn't sit down. I stood by the window, staring out at the lot, the same lot that should have been buzzing with opportunity. Instead, it looked hollow. Derek shuffled inside, closing the door behind him. Boss, if this is about earlier, I was just… Stop, I said sharply, cutting him off. I don't want another excuse. He clamped his mouth shut, scowling slightly. You insulted a customer, I said, voice low and hard. You insulted a human being, Derek scoffed. Come on, you really think someone in that outfit was going to buy an Escalade? You've been in this business long enough, you know how it works. And what if I do, I asked, turning to face him fully. Maybe that's the problem. He blinked. I took a step closer. We're not gatekeepers, Derek. We're not fortune tellers. Our job is to treat everyone like they're worth our best. Because they are. He rolled his eyes. And right then, I knew. I knew there was no fixing him. Derek wasn't sorry. He wasn't embarrassed. He was just annoyed he got caught. "You're fired," I said simply. He laughed like I was joking. But when he saw I wasn't, his face twisted into something ugly. "You can't be serious. After everything I've brought in for this place? You're gonna throw me out over some deadbeat?" I stared at him, letting the silence answer, and slowly, he realized it was real. He opened his mouth, probably to threaten a lawsuit, probably to scream, but I raised a hand. "Get out," I said, quieter now, "while you still have the dignity to walk." For a heartbeat, I thought he might lunge at me. But then he spun on his heel, storming out so fast the door rattled in its frame. The dealership floor watched him go in frozen silence. The rest of the day blurred by. Word traveled fast. The employees shifted uneasily, casting glances at each other, wondering who might be next. Good. They should wonder. Maybe fear would crack open what decency hadn't touched. It was almost closing time when Karen knocked softly on my door again. "Boss? There's someone else asking to see you." I pinched the bridge of my nose. "I'm not in the mood, Karen. Tell them we're closed." She hesitated. "It's the man from this morning," she said quietly. My stomach flipped. "The grandfather?" She nodded. I stood up so fast my knees cracked. "Send him in." When the door opened, the man stepped inside alone this time. No child. No lawyer. Just him. Up close. He looked even more worn than I remembered. Deep lines etched his face, a life carved hard. But his eyes. They were steady. Clear. Measuring. I gestured awkwardly to the seat across from me. "Please." He sat down slowly, placing a battered baseball cap on his knee. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then, finally, he said, "I'm guessing you know who I am now." I nodded once. "Mr. Winters." "Sir, I am so." He held up a hand, stopping me. "I'm not here for an apology," he said quietly. "I've heard too many of those over the years." I swallowed my words. "You're wondering why I came back," he continued. I said nothing, waiting. He leaned forward slightly, his voice lowering. "I came back because my grandson asked me to," I blinked. "He asked?" Winters smiled faintly. "He said he wanted to give you another chance. Said maybe you weren't like the others." He paused. "And I trust his judgment a hell of a lot more than I trust mine these days." I leaned back in my chair, feeling like the ground had shifted under me. "Your grandson is an impressive kid," I said carefully. Mr. Winters chuckled. A low, tired sound. "You're telling me, smarter than I ever was at his age, sees things clearer, too." He looked down at the cap in his hands, running a finger along its battered brim. "That boy," he said, voice thickening, "he's been through more than you could guess. Lost his mother 2 years ago. My daughter." I swallowed hard. "I'm sorry," I said. And meant it. Mr. Winters shrugged slightly, a man's gesture that said he'd heard that phrase too many times to believe it changed anything. "After she passed," he continued. "It's just been me and him, trying to make sense of a world that doesn't make a lot of sense anymore." He raised his eyes to mine. And for the first time, I saw the real cost behind those lines on his face. Not just years, but grief. A weight that never left. "I don't expect people to roll out red carpets for us," he said. "I don't expect pity. But I do expect," he leaned in slightly, "basic damn decency." I nodded slowly, shame burning under my skin. "You were right to walk out," I said. "And you would have been right never to come back." He studied me for a long moment. The silence between us felt like a living thing. Then he leaned back and exhaled. "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe. Giving people second chances is how we start fixing things." He stood, slowly, like his joints argued with him every step. "I'm not promising anything," he said. "But maybe we'll see you again, when you're ready to prove you're better than one bad apple." And without another word, he left, leaving me alone with a burning hole where my pride used to be. That night, I didn't sleep. Not even a little. I kept seeing the boy's face. That one look. Disappointment layered over hope. A kid who already knew the world could be cruel, but still dared to believe someone might be better. And I realized something else. something that shook me to my core. It wasn't just Derek, it was me too, it was all of us. We'd built a culture where judging people by their shoes, their jackets, their accents, that was normal. Unspoken. Taught without even being said. I thought about every time I let it slide. Every time I didn't correct a snide comment or a dismissive shrug. Every time I cared more about quotas than kindness. And suddenly, I hated the dealership I thought I loved. The next morning, I called an emergency staff meeting. They shuffled into the showroom, still yawning, sipping coffee, shooting curious glances at each other. Derek's absence was a silent, buzzing thing in the air. Everyone knew something was different. They just didn't know how different yet. I stood up on the little platform near the reception desk. No microphone, no notes, just me, raw. "I failed you," I said simply. "And because of that, you failed our customers." A ripple went through the room. Whispers. Furtive looks. "I let a culture grow here," I continued, voice steady, "where sales mattered more than people. Where we decided who was worth our time and who wasn't, based on nothing more than appearances." More shifting. A few guilty faces. A few defensive ones too. "I let it happen," I said. "And yesterday, we lost the biggest account we've ever had. Because of it." Dead silence. You could have heard a paperclip drop. "But that's not what matters most," I said. "What matters most is the look on a little boy's face when he realized adults could be just as cruel as the world warned him they would be." I took a breath. Felt it shudder inside me. "We're changing everything," I said. "Starting today." I laid it out, simple and brutal. Mandatory retraining. New customer-first policies. Zero tolerance for disrespect, no matter how small. Anonymous reporting channels. Monthly reviews that prioritize service, not just sales. "And if you don't like it," I finished, sweeping my gaze across them, "if you think you're above it, you know where the door is." For a long, awful moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, a few heads nodded. Some grudgingly. Some thoughtfully. Some with something like hope. Maybe there was still a chance. Maybe we weren't beyond saving after all. The next few weeks were hell. Some employees quit on the spot. Others fought tooth and nail against the changes. Sales dipped. Reviews dipped. Tensions skyrocketed. There were days I wondered if I'd killed the dealership trying to save it. Nights when I stared at the ceiling, wondering if Derek had been right after all, that this business required a little cruelty to survive. But then little things started happening, small miracles. An older woman breaking into tears because someone actually listened to her needs instead of pushing the most expensive model. A young couple hugging their salesman because he helped them find a used car under budget instead of upselling. A disabled veteran shaking my hand and saying thank you for treating me like a person. Bit by bit, it started to shift. The culture. The spirit of the place. Like a poisoned well slowly clearing. And then, one Saturday afternoon, I saw it. A familiar truck pulling into the lot. Dusty. Rugged. Strong. Out stepped Mr. Winters. And next to him, Adam. They walked through the automatic doors together, and this time, when they looked around, they smiled. Not big, not showy, but real. A small, cautious kind of hope. The kind that could bloom if you didn't crush it. I stood up from my desk so quickly that my chair slid backward. Karen at the front desk caught my eye and gave me a barely noticeable nod. She had seen them too, and maybe she felt the shift as strongly as I did. I walked out to meet them. No fanfare, no sales pitch. Just two hands open and ready to rebuild a bridge we'd almost burned down. "Mr. Winters," I said, offering my hand. "Adam." Mr. Winters took it after a pause. His grip was firm, but not forceful. A handshake that said, "We'll see." Adam gave me a shy smile, one hand still tucked into his grandfather's. He looked taller than I remembered. Or maybe it was just the weight of what he'd seen that day making him seem older. Mr. Winters surveyed the showroom floor. The atmosphere was different now. You could feel it. Less pressure. More conversation. More real listening. I waited. I wasn't about to rush them. Trust couldn't be demanded. It had to be earned. One breath at a time. Finally, Mr. Winters spoke. "You said you were going to change things," he said gruffly. "Looks like you meant it." I nodded. I did. He grunted, then looked down at Adam. You ready, buddy? Adam grinned, a real smile this time, and nodded. He pulled something out of his backpack, a crumpled flyer. It was for one of our mid-size SUVs. A model perfect for family trips, safe and reliable. Adam held it out to me like an offering. This one, please, he said. Grandpa said it's important to choose something that makes you feel proud. My throat tightened. I cleared it quickly, trying to keep my voice steady. You have excellent taste, I said. Adam beamed. We spent the next hour walking the lot together. No pressure, no pushing, just information, questions, laughter. Mr. Winters drove 3 models. Adam inspected the back seats carefully, testing the seatbelts, bouncing on the cushions, even peeking into the trunk space. He was thorough. Like he wanted to make sure they weren't just buying a car, they were choosing a new chapter. At one point, Adam tugged on my sleeve. Mr. Taylor, he said, serious-eyed. Does this one have the safety alert for kids in the back seat? I smiled. Yes, it does. It reminds you to check the back seat before you leave the car. Adam nodded solemnly. That's important. You can't forget about the people you love. I felt the words punch straight through my ribs. Out of the mouths of children. Truths sharper than any adult dared to say. When the paperwork was done, and the keys were resting gently in Mr. Winters' calloused hand, something strange happened. Instead of just leaving, Adam turned to face me fully. He pulled something else out of his backpack. A folded piece of paper. He held it out to me. For you, he said. I took it carefully, unfolding it. It was a crayon drawing. The dealership was in the background, recognizable by the big glass windows and the blue banners. In front of it stood 3 figures, smiling. A man with a gray beard. A boy in a red hoodie. And a man in a suit. Me. Above them, in big messy handwriting, were the words, "Good people make good places." I stared at it for a long moment, the paper trembling slightly in my hands. Mr. Winters cleared his throat. Kid's been working on that for a week, he muttered. Didn't want to give it to you till he was sure. I folded the drawing carefully, reverently. More valuable than any fleet contract, more important than any monthly quota. I'll hang it in the office, I said quietly. First thing tomorrow, Adam grinned. And for the first time in months, maybe longer, I realized I wasn't just running a business anymore. I was running a promise. A promise that every person who walked through those glass doors would be seen. Heard. Respected, no matter what boots they wore. No matter how dusty their jackets were. No matter how invisible they felt outside our walls. Weeks turned into months. Slowly, steadily, the dealership rebuilt its reputation. Not because of flashier ads. Not because of lower prices. But because word got out. They treat you like you matter there. Old customers came back. New ones found us by word of mouth. Service improved. Sales improved. But most importantly, the soul of the place healed. I kept Adam's drawing framed above my desk. Every time I felt the old instincts creeping back. The drive to chase numbers over people. I looked at that crayon picture. And remembered. Good people make good places. One rainy Thursday afternoon, almost 6 months after that terrible day, I got a call at the front desk. Karen transferred it through, breathless. Boss, she said, you might want to take this yourself. I picked up. Taylor here. A familiar voice crackled through. Hey, Mr. Taylor, Adam said, sounding older somehow. I just wanted to tell you, Grandpa and me, we're doing a big road trip this summer, in the SUV. Gonna see the Grand Canyon and everything. I smiled so hard it hurt. That sounds amazing, Adam, I said. You're going to have the time of your life. There was a pause. Then, quietly, shyly, he said, thanks for making it a good place. The line clicked dead before I could answer. Before I could tell him he had done more for me than he'd ever know. I sat there for a long time, phone still in my hand, the rain tapping gently against the windows. Not crying, not exactly. But maybe feeling the weight lift just a little more. Because sometimes, the biggest victories aren't shouted from rooftops. Sometimes they happen quietly, in small, unseen ways. In the quiet redemption of a broken man. In the crayon drawing of a hopeful boy. In the silent knowledge that kindness had won, not just that day, but every day after. The summer rolled in with heavy heat and slow afternoons. Customers trickled in, sunglasses perched on their heads, kids in tow, asking about road trip vehicles and family cars. Every time I watched a family walk through the doors, I thought of Adam and Mr. Winters, of dusty boots and tired eyes, of second chances. It was funny how a simple moment could stretch across months, reshaping everything in its wake. In July, we hosted a small Customer Appreciation Day. Hot dogs, cold drinks, a few raffle prizes. Nothing extravagant. Just a way to say thank you. I was refilling napkins at the concession table when Karen tapped me on the shoulder. "You're gonna want to see this," she whispered, grinning. I turned and froze. There they were, Mr. Winters and Adam, tanned from their road trip, laughing together, a rare, golden sound. Adam spotted me first. He darted over, nearly knocking over a display of balloons. "Mr. Taylor!" he shouted, wrapping his arms around my waist in a spontaneous hug. I staggered back a step, laughing. "Hey, buddy," I said. "You made it back safe." He nodded vigorously. "We saw the Grand Canyon and Yellowstone and even a place called Meteor Crater. Grandpa let me take 1,000,000 pictures." Mr. Winters approached more slowly, but his face held a different kind of smile this time. No hesitation. No shields. Just gratitude. "You've got yourself a fine thing going here," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. "Thank you, sir," I said, meaning it more than I ever had before. "For everything." We stood there a moment, soaking it all in. The music from the speakers, the chatter of families, the soft clinking of soda bottles against ice. It was a different dealership now. Alive. Human. Real. Later that afternoon, as the sun started to dip low, Karen pulled the winning ticket from the raffle drum. The grand prize was nothing huge, just a year of free oil changes and a $500 gas card. But the excitement crackled in the air anyway. Karen unfolded the ticket and read the number aloud. 54,762! The crowd murmured, people checking their stubs. Then, from the back of the group, a small voice squeaked. "I won!" It was Adam. He held the ticket up high, grinning from ear to ear. The crowd clapped and cheered as he raced forward to claim his prize. Mr. Winters laughed, shaking his head in disbelief. As Adam posed for a picture, holding the giant novelty gas card with both hands, I caught Mr. Winters watching me. Not judging, not testing, just observing. And then he gave a slow, deliberate nod. The kind of nod you don't hand out easily. The kind you earn. That night, after the event ended, and the last balloons had been popped or floated off into the sunset, I stayed behind, sitting on the hood of a showroom sedan, looking at the now empty lot. It wasn't about money anymore. It wasn't about winning some invisible competition against the dealership down the road. It was about something bigger, something older, dignity, kindness, belonging. I thought about how easily we could have missed it, how one careless insult, one thoughtless moment, had almost cost us everything worth having, and how one child's quiet insistence on hope had brought it all back. Over the next few months, we kept growing. Not explosively. Not like some overnight success story. Steadily. Honestly. Brick by brick. The dealership developed a reputation, not as the cheapest or the flashiest, but as the place where you didn't have to prove you were worthy to be treated with respect. You just had to walk through the door. Other dealerships started noticing. Some tried to imitate it, throwing up banners about family values and honesty you can trust. But it wasn't in the slogans, it was in the small moments. The way our receptionists learned regulars' names, the way our mechanics explained repairs without talking down, the way salespeople asked first about needs instead of budgets. And when new hires came in, we made sure they understood. You are not here to sell cars. You are here to serve people. Everything else follows. One afternoon in September, I was sorting through old storage boxes when I found something surprising. Tucked in a dusty folder, between old employee handbooks and outdated service forms, was Derek's original hiring paperwork. I sat down heavily, flipping through it. The glowing references, the awards, the aggressive sales goals. It hit me how blind I had been back then. Chasing numbers, chasing ego, ignoring the rot underneath. I tossed the folder into the shredder without hesitation. Some things weren't worth remembering. Not when you had better things to build toward. Fall arrived, crisp and golden. The first leaves fell across the lot like bright confetti. Kids came in with their parents, shopping for their first winter-ready vehicles. Older couples wandered the SUV section, dreaming about retirement road trips. The dealership felt alive in a way it never had before. And, every now and then, like a ghost from the past, I'd spot a dusty truck pulling into the service bay. Adam sitting shotgun, grinning as he told our techs about their latest adventures. Mr. Winters chatting with the other customers, handing out road trip advice like candy. They weren't just customers anymore, they were family. One evening as I was locking up, I caught sight of Adam's framed drawing above my desk. The crayon colors had faded slightly in the sunlight, but the words were still bright. Good people make good places. I touched the frame lightly. He was right. He'd always been right. And I promised myself again. No matter how hard it got, no matter how tempting shortcuts might seem, I would never forget it. Not ever. The first snow dusted the dealership in December. A light, quiet covering. Like the world was holding its breath, waiting. Christmas lights twinkled along the windows. Inside, we set up a toy donation drive, filling a big red sleigh with gifts for families in need. The staff, once skeptical of all my changes, now competed to bring in the biggest donations. It was a good problem to have. And it all led to one night that sealed everything we had worked for. It was the night of our first official holiday thanks celebration. We invited customers, employees, families, anyone who had been a part of our strange, messy, beautiful transformation. No pitches, no sales, just gratitude. The lot was strung with lights. A local choir sang carols. Kids raced around with candy canes and cocoa mustaches. And just as I was about to step up to the little podium we'd set by the entrance, Karen tugged at my sleeve. "They're here," she whispered. I turned and saw them. Mr. Winters, Adam, and someone else. A woman, late 20s, early 30s, bright eyes, wearing a navy blue peacoat and a scarf. It took me a second to realize. It wasn't just anyone. It was Adam's mother. I blinked, stunned. I thought she had died. Mr. Winters had said, or had I just assumed? Before I could catch my breath, Mr. Winters approached, smiling wider than I'd ever seen. "This is my daughter, Maggie," he said proudly, placing a firm hand on her shoulder. "Adam's mom." Maggie laughed at my stunned expression. "It's a long story," she said. "Medical stuff, hard years. But I'm here now, thanks to a lot of hope. And this stubborn old man." I shook her hand, still half in shock. "You have no idea," I said quietly, "how much your son changed this place." Maggie's eyes softened. "He told me," she said, "every detail. And he told me you listened." I nodded, throat thick. "He saved us," I said simply. Later, as I gave my short, stumbling speech about gratitude, about second chances, about the unseen kindness that knits broken things back together, I caught Adam's eye in the crowd. He was sitting on his mother's lap, arms wrapped around her tightly, smiling that big, fearless smile I had missed so much. And next to him, Mr. Winters stood tall, proud, and unbreakable. I ended the speech with a toast. "To good people," I said, raising my glass, "and to the places they make possible." Everyone clinked plastic cups and cheered, but it was Adam's grin that lit up the night more brightly than all the fairy lights strung across the lot. As the party wound down, as the crowd thinned and the music faded, I found myself standing by the sleigh filled with toys. Adam wandered over, hands stuffed in his jacket pockets. He looked up at me, thoughtful. "You kept your promise," he said simply. I knelt so we were eye to eye. "I did," I said, "because you reminded me what mattered." He nodded seriously. Then he did something I didn't expect. He pulled a new piece of paper out of his pocket. Another drawing. This one showed the dealership under a sky full of stars. More people, more cars, more smiles. And across the top, written carefully in neat block letters, "Kindness grows." I took it carefully, feeling the weight of it settle into my hands like something sacred. "I'll hang this one too," I said. "Right next to the first." Adam grinned. "Good," he said, "because there's always room for more good." That night, after the lights shut off and the lot fell silent under the first real snowstorm of the season, I stood at my office window. Framed now by two crayon drawings, one old, one new. And for the first time since the day Derek made that terrible mistake, I felt it. Peace. Not the peace of everything being perfect. Not the peace of numbers and profits and goals. The peace of knowing we had built something real, something good, something that would last long after sales reports faded and names were forgotten. A place where kindness wasn't a gimmick. It was the foundation. And all because one little boy refused to believe the world couldn't be better. I smiled to myself, watching the snow fall softly against the glass, feeling the quiet heartbeat of a place finally, truly alive. And I whispered to the night, knowing somehow that the message would find its way back to where it belonged. Thank you, Adam. You made us better. Sometimes, the moments that seem small end up changing everything. One conversation, one choice to listen, one act of kindness that echoes further than we ever imagined. Thank you for being part of this journey. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more powerful moments like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more unforgettable stories.